These are 4 real cases of human time travel. Number 4. Håkan Nordqvist. The unlikely story of Håkan Nordqvist is that of a man who briefly stepped forward in time 40 years and came into contact with his own future self. His own account of the story begins on August 30th, 2006 in Åland, an island province on the southeastern coast of Sweden. Håkan arrives home from work to find his kitchen sink leaking and in need of repair. As he reaches underneath to fix it, the pipes underneath the sink seem farther back than he initially recalls. He begins to crawl into the cabinet, only to fall into what appears to have been a cosmic wormhole, a displacement in the universe that can reposition you onto another spot in space-time. Håkan begins to see what he describes as a bright light and goes into it, only to re-emerge back into his own kitchen. This is where the story goes from the strange into the paranormal. Håkan comes face to face with his future self and manages to record the encounter on his mobile phone. The resemblance is striking, but the similarities do not end there. Håkan says they talked about past experiences that only he could know. They even compared the tribal tattoos on their right arms. If the video is not convincing enough, a team of video forensic analysts from Oxford University put the video through a barrage of testing and determined that the video had not been tampered with or altered in any way, even going so far as to compare the tattoos on each man, and determining that the aging and stretching patterns of the future version of Håkan's tattoo was consistent with how the tattoo would be expected to age. The most convincing aspect aside from the video evidence is that Håkan appears to not be concerned with fame, notoriety, or if people believe him, only that his story is told.
Nej, men jag vet ju bara att jag träffar mig själv i framtiden och att jag... Nej, men att jag hade det jävligt gött. Sen får ju folk tro vad de vill.
Number 3. Sir Victor Goddard in the Drim Airfield. The fantastic tale of Sir Victor Goddard was that of a senior commanding officer who found himself caught in a thunderstorm that propelled him forward in time. His story begins in February 1935, when Victor set out on a flight from Edinburgh, Scotland to Andover, England. Feeling reminiscent of his time stationed at Drim Airfield during the First World War, he set his course to fly over his old duty station, intending to land there and have a look around. 2 hours into his trip, Victor enters his flyover and approach of Drim Airfield, only to find the hangars, airstrip, and base in disrepair and overgrown. Unable to land due to the ground conditions, Victor decides to continue his journey. 30 minutes after passing over the airfield, Victor encounters what he describes as a yellow cloud formation in the sky that surrounds him. Violently jerked around in the sky by the unusual storm, Victor loses control of his biplane's instruments and decides to turn back, then descends 10,000 feet to find the bottom of the storm, but to no avail. With no way out and his plane becoming more unstable by the second, the sky suddenly clears and Victor regains control of the aircraft. This is where the story goes from the strange into the paranormal. Victor passes back over what should have been Drim Airfield, but it is unrecognizable to how it looked less than an hour before, back in full use and completely repaired. The most noticeable difference seems to be that although Victor is a veteran pilot of many different warplanes, he is unable to recognize the yellow monoplanes on the ground below him. Even the blue coveralls being worn by men on the ground are not familiar to Victor, who is used to seeing the standard issue gray. Victor then changes his course back to Andover. Just before arriving, he finds himself caught in the same storm once again. Prepared from his last experience, he flies through it and arrives at his destination unharmed. Victor would later speak freely about his experience with the people closest to him, but only discussed it publicly on rare occasions. 4 years later, the British Royal Air Force would open Drim Airfield once again, as well as change its standard issue coveralls to blue, and begin to paint their newly developed monoplanes yellow. Number 2. South Fork Bridge Time Traveler. Probably one of the most famous cases of time travel is the picture of a man clearly out of time. Seen here in a photograph taken in 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Gold Bridge, British Columbia. The man can be seen wearing wraparound sunglasses, a cardigan, and a graphic t-shirt, all of which would have been an unheard of style for the time. What makes this case most compelling is that the photo could not have been faked, as it was discovered at the Braylord Pioneer Museum in British Columbia and had been there for years. Still not convinced? Here is another angle where the man can clearly be seen from behind. This is where the story goes from the strange into the paranormal. Many people have speculated about the identity of the man. In 1989, the South Fork Bridge collapsed, and although everybody was rescued unharmed, there was one man who did come up missing. Unassuming stylish young man, or time traveler from 1989? You decide. Number 1. The Man from Taured. The Man from Taured is the story about a traveler of unknown origins. The story begins at the Japanese International Airport in July of 1954. An unknown man, described as Caucasian-looking with a beard, arrives at customs and hands his passport to immigration officers to be stamped. Upon inspection by the Japanese officers, the passport appears authentic, with several stamps from other European countries as well as previous stamps from his trips to Tokyo. Except that the passport's country of origin was Taured, a country that does not exist. Upon questioning by the officers, the man insists that his country is real, even going so far as demanding to see a map to show them exactly where Taured is located. But when the man looked at the map provided, he was stunned to see that the area where Taured should have been was instead another country named Andorra, a principality located between France and Spain in the Pyrenees Mountains. The officers, more convinced than ever that something strange was going on, asked the man why he was traveling to Japan. The man then provided documentation that proved he was there on business, but when the customs officers called the company in question, they were told that the company had no knowledge of him or his trip. Getting late into the evening and more unanswered questions piling up by the minute, Japanese officials decided to put the man in a hotel overnight with 2 guards to make sure he could not escape. This is where the story goes from the strange into the paranormal. The Japanese officials wake up that morning to find the man and all his possessions disappeared. The odd thing about this is the fact that the hotel room was on the 8th floor with no way down. The Man from Taured will forever remain a mystery, and perhaps one of the strangest real cases of time travel we have ever seen. Are these just made-up stories or strange coincidences? Or is this just another example of the truth that they could be hiding?